are some of those dangers from EMFs, as well as what are the main sources of EMFs? And the third part of that question is, what are the symptoms, most common symptoms associated with exposure to EMFs?
That's a lot of questions there. You get me all at once.
I like to get it all done right up front, you
know? So I can tell you, there are many, many symptoms associated with this. For instance, my symptoms were, so I got these immediate symptoms, and I was lucky because I got the symptoms and I was able to associate cell phone next to the head, pain, cell phone away, no pain. So I knew it was that, even though I didn't know anything about EMFs, didn't know, so just perhaps I should just clarify that. What, when I keep saying EMFs, what I mean is electromagnetic fields. And these are man-made forces which impact our health on many different levels. And we are surrounded by these EMFs, these electromagnetic fields of many different frequencies. So when we talk about EMFs, we're usually talking about a certain frequency or a certain wavelength. That's how we characterize them. And we can see them all on something called the EMF spectrum. And what our governments, what the mainstream media is saying is that everything which is ionizing, which is like medical x-rays and nuclear bombs, that's dangerous. And what is non-ionizing, it's like we've got this imaginary line, and then everything which is non-ionizing, which is the wireless, which is the cell phones, which is a Bluetooth, which is a smart, everything's smart, which is, our homes are full of smart, all these things, somehow they're safe because there's no heating effect. And all the science, there's a lot of science on this shows very clearly there are adverse biological effects at very low levels, at levels which we're all surrounded by. We've got individual studies just on cell phones showing very clearly, for instance, 30 minutes a day on your cell phone increases your risk of a brain tumor by 40%.
Say that statistics again.
30 minutes a day on your cell phone, 30 minutes a day cell phone use increases your risk of a brain tumor by 40%. Okay,
wow.
Interphone study, 2010. So let me just clarify this. So this is one study looking at just cell phones, like back in 2010. Okay, you imagine how sophisticated the cell phones now, the kind of data capacity those cell phones have, and imagine all the other exposures on top of that. Because we're only looking at that. We're just saying, okay, let's just test that, guys. In a Faraday control setting, Faraday cage control setting. Let's just test cell phone radiation. It already produces that kind of damage. Imagine when you're exposed to all these dangers, all the collective, the cumulative effect of all this. Absolutely huge.
Was that study done where they were holding the cell phone against their head? They weren't using...
No, these are studies done. There's no like volunteers who want to do these studies. These are animal studies. And for instance, the NTP, National Toxicology Program, $30 million US study funded by US taxpayers. And the idea was to show that cell phones were safe. What did they find? Clear evidence of cancer. And this study was replicated by the Ramazzini Institute in Italy. Clear evidence of cancer, same conclusion. So very clearly, and it's not just about cancer, it's about so many diseases. Cancer, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, you name it. There's the list goes on. Autoimmune diseases, multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis. Honestly, there is a body of literature behind this which few people are aware of, because unfortunately this information is censored. My website is censored, censored on Google, censored on Facebook, and on other social networks. And believe me, there are people that do not want this information to get out there.
When I was researching this topic, when I lived in San Diego years ago, initially started coming into this understanding EMFs, I remember finding a case where a woman who used to hold her cell phone in her bra right here ended up developing a tumor on her breast the exact same shape as her cell phone. And that was like a really compelling image for me at the time. And I thought, whoa, okay, there's got to be something to this. And the more I researched, the more it became really clear about, being exposed to EMF, especially in very close range, has a very damaging effect on, the cellular degeneration of our bodies. And since then, I've always kept my cell phone away from me as much as I can, put it on airplane mode at night when I sleep, try to keep it out of my pocket as much as possible. But, what are some of the things that we need to look out for? Because obviously we're using computers, we're using cell phones, if we want to live in the society, be productive, provide for our families, unless we're living in an intentional community somewhere in the mountains without any EMFs around us for 100 miles, we're exposed to this stuff. And so what can we do about it?
Well, what can we do about it? So just to be clear on, this is a stressor. Let's just get clear on this before I tell you what we can do about it. This is a stressor. Within 5 minutes of being exposed to EMFs, your body mounts what's called a stress response. And it's like being punched in the face, if you want. And, when you've got this stress response, saying your body creates proteins, it creates inflammation. And that's all great, except the problem with EMFs is it's like being punched in the face over and over again. And this is the problem. Your body is not designed to mount a stress response 24/7. And this effectively leads to cellular damage and to aging. And everything what we're talking about here with EMFs, it's all going back to the cells, because that's what the studies are talking about, is this, the cells and the cell membranes, and the brilliant work by Dr. Martin Paul on the voltage-gated calcium channels, and how it impacts our DNA, how it impacts the mitochondria, enzymes. It's on these. So it starts off on the cells, and then it feeds through and translates into all these diseases which I've talked about. So in terms of what you can do, in terms of protecting yourself, and again, there is, if you want me to explain more about the mechanisms, I'm very happy to do that. Gets a bit geeky, but there are some we have now quite a clear understanding. We don't understand totally, but quite a clear understanding of how this actually impacts our cells. But in terms of, what we can do, so there's many things we can do. That's the good news. And I have a framework for dealing with this, and I call it the Okay, and the I love saying this because it makes me feel all zen when I say it. And it's actually stands for understand, measure, mitigate. And so first thing to do is understand, and that's what you're doing now. So you're listening to me, is understanding this problem, understanding that there are these different kinds of EMFs, understanding there's actually four principal kinds of EMFs: electric fields, magnetic fields, radio frequency radiation, and dirty electricity.
We hope you enjoyed this short excerpt from the Health and Healing Club. This entire video, including an in-depth discussion and thoughtful and inspiring questions and answers, is available inside the Health and Healing Club, along with hundreds of hours of premium and exclusive life-changing content, practices, and holistic, natural, and integrative solutions for health and healing. You can start your free trial today at healthandhealingclub.com.